Imagine waking up tomorrow with no clothes, not because you lost them, because they don't exist yet. No shirt, no shoes, no blanket, nothing. You step outside, the wind hits your bare skin like a blade. Somewhere in the distance, an animal is watching you, and for the first time in your life, you realize something terrifying. You are the weakest creature in this forest. No claws, no fur, no thick hide, just soft, exposed skin, standing against a world that was never built to be kind to it. Now rewind. 200,000 years. This wasn't a nightmare. This was Tuesday for every human who ever lived before clothing existed. So here's the question that should bother you more than it does. Every other mammal on this planet came with built-in protection. Fur, blubber, feathers, scales. Nature dressed them before they were born. Humans got nothing. Why would evolution do that? Why would it strip away the one thing every other species relies on to survive the cold and leave us naked in a world full of ice ages, freezing nights, and predators who never had to think twice about the weather? Something doesn't add up, and the answer is stranger than you think. Let's start with what most people assume. Most people assume early humans put on clothes simply because they were cold. Problem noticed, solution applied. Simple. But that's not what happened, not even close. Here's the first piece of the puzzle that should make you pause. Humans didn't lose their fur by accident. Scientists studying our genetics have found something strange. We share a gene mutation with almost no other primate on Earth, a mutation that essentially switched off thick body hair millions of years before clothing ever existed. Which means for a massive stretch of human history, our ancestors were walking around a hostile planet, naked, hairless, and completely unprotected. On purpose. Evolution took away our fur before it gave us anything to replace it with. Now stop and think about that for a second. Why would a species survive millions of years of harsh environments with no fur and no clothes? At first, this seems like a fatal design flaw, until you realize something. Losing fur wasn't a mistake, it was a trade. Our ancestors were persistence hunters. They didn't kill prey with speed or claws, they chased it. For hours, sometimes for an entire day, across open, blazing landscapes, until the animal simply collapsed from exhaustion. Fur would have killed us. A body covered in thick hair, running for hours under direct sun, would overheat and die before the prey ever did. So our ancestors traded warmth for something far more valuable, the ability to sweat, to cool down, to outlast anything on the savanna. We didn't lose our fur despite the danger. We lost it because of the reward. But that solved one problem and created a much bigger one. Because now, humans could survive the heat of Africa, but what happens when those same hairless bodies start moving into colder places? What happens when humans begin walking out of Africa toward Europe, toward Asia, toward landscapes covered in snow? A hairless, sweat-cooled body is a perfect machine for the equator. It is a death sentence in an ice age. This is where the real mystery begins, because if you look at the timeline, something incredible shows up. Modern humans started leaving Africa roughly 70,000 years ago, and not long after, they were surviving in some of the coldest environments on Earth: Siberia, Northern Europe, places where winter temperatures could kill an unprotected human in less than an hour. So how does a species that evolved to sweat off heat survive freezing tundras with nothing but bare skin? The honest answer is it couldn't, not without something drastically changing. And this is where scientists found one of the strangest clues in human history, hidden not in bones, not in cave paintings, but inside something almost nobody thinks about: lice. Yes, lice. Researchers studying human head lice and a separate species, body lice, discovered something remarkable. Body lice can only survive in clothing. They cannot live on bare skin for long, which means the moment body lice evolved as a separate species from head lice, humans must have already been wearing something that lice could live inside. By tracing the genetic mutation rate of these lice, scientists estimated when body lice first split off, and the number they landed on was staggering, somewhere between 170,000 and 83,000 years ago. Read that again. Humans may have started wearing some form of clothing over 100,000 years before they ever left Africa, which means clothing wasn't invented as a reaction to the cold of Europe. It was already being used long before that journey even began. So if it wasn't the freezing tundra that started it, what did? This is where the story stops being simple, because if early humans in warm African climates were already covering their bodies, temperature alone cannot explain it. Something else was happening, something deeper. Some researchers believe the earliest form of clothing wasn't about warmth at all. It may have started as protection. Animal hides wrapped around the body could shield skin from thorns, insect bites, sun damage, in the friction of carrying tools, firewood, or food across long distances. But there's another theory, a stranger one. What if clothing began not as protection from nature, but as protection from each other? Anthropologists have long noted that clothing, from the earliest known evidence, seems tied to identity, to status, to belonging. A piece of hide worn a certain way could signal who you were, which group you belonged to, what your role was inside that group. In a world without written language, without spoken names as we know them today, how do you tell a stranger from a distance whether you were safe or dangerous, friend or rival? You show them. Clothing may have started as the earliest form of communication humans ever invented. Before language had the words for it, the body was already speaking. But this raises a bigger question. If early clothing wasn't primarily about survival, how did it eventually become the thing that let humans conquer ice ages?
The answer lies in a discovery that changes almost everything we thought we knew about ancient technology. Around 40 to 60,000 years ago, archaeologists start finding a very specific, very telling piece of evidence at ancient human sites: bone needles. Tiny, precise, with eyelets small enough to thread sinew or plant fiber through them. This is not a detail to skip past. A needle isn't just a tool for wrapping fabric around a body. A needle means tailoring. It means shaping material to fit the human form, sealing seams, creating layers that trap heat instead of just draping over the body. Draped hides can protect you from wind, but tailored, fitted clothing, stitched tightly at the seams, can trap body heat the way nothing else in nature can. It is quite literally the difference between surviving a cold night and surviving an ice age. And here is the detail that should genuinely surprise you. Neanderthals, who lived in Europe for hundreds of thousands of years in brutally cold climates, show almost no evidence of using needles or tailored clothing. They likely wrapped themselves in loosely draped furs. Modern humans, arriving later, brought fitted, sewn clothing with them. Some researchers now believe this single difference, tailored clothing versus draped hides, may have been one of the deciding factors in why modern humans thrived through the last ice age, while Neanderthals eventually vanished. Let that sink in for a moment. A needle, a tiny sliver of bone with a hole in it, may have quietly decided which branch of the human family tree survived the deadliest climate event in our history. Not a weapon, not fire, a needle. But even this doesn't complete the story, because clothing didn't just help humans survive nature, it fundamentally changed human behavior. Once bodies could be protected from the cold, humans weren't limited to warm seasons or warm regions anymore. They could migrate further, hunt longer, sleep through freezing nights, raise children in climates that would have been impossible just generations earlier.
Clothing became a kind of portable environment, a personal climate that traveled with you, no matter how hostile the world outside became. And once humans realized clothing could be shaped, layered, and designed, it stopped being just a survival tool. It became something else entirely, a canvas. Ochre pigments have been found alongside some of the earliest tailored garments, suggesting that even tens of thousands of years ago, humans weren't just dressing to survive, they were dressing to be seen. Which brings us back to the question this entire video began with. Why did ancient humans start wearing clothes? The honest answer is, it was never just one reason. It began as a response to losing fur for the sake of endurance hunting. It may have developed further as protection from the environment. It likely became a symbol of identity and belonging long before it became insulation against ice. And eventually, through something as small as a bone needle, it turned into the technology that helped one branch of humanity outlast an ice age that erased another. A single piece of fabric, something we barely think about while getting dressed each morning, carries inside it one of the longest, strangest survival stories in human history.
Every morning, you put on clothes without a single thought. It takes seconds. No decision, no danger, no consequence. But somewhere in that simple act lives the memory of a species that once stood naked against an ice age, with nothing but a scrap of hide and a sliver of bone, and somehow found a way to survive which should have killed them. The next time you pull on a jacket against the cold, remember, you're not just staying warm. You're carrying forward the single decision that may have decided who your ancestors were and who they were not.